Good evening. Jeff Armstrong. I'm Director of Planning and Development Services. Also speaking tonight will be Debbie Anderson, who's the chair of the Mesquite's Complete Count Committee. I'm going to kind of kick things off and tee it up here a little bit, and then I'm going to let Debbie take over and finish up. It's 2020, and because the year ends in a zero, that means we're going to be doing a census this year. And you know, the United States Constitution mandates that a census be done every 10 years. The reason we're in front of you tonight and not briefing this upstairs or somewhere else is this information is important for our citizens to understand the importance of the census. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's the whole purpose of the Complete Count Committee, is to get out there, get the word out, provide opportunities for all of our citizens to participate in the census. The data from the census is used to allocate federal dollars, which have a direct impact on things like schools, transportation, health programs, food programs, and so forth. Of course, it's also used to draw lines which translate into congressional districts. Based on current estimates, Texas stands to gain 3 or 4 additional seats in Congress after the 2020 census. If not everybody gets counted, we might only get 3. If we all get counted, maybe we'll get 4. You know, it's the kind of difference we're talking about here. 2020 will be the first time that people will be able to respond online, on phone, on their devices. First time in history that'll be available, and it will be available in 12 different languages. The Complete Count Committee was established, as I already said, to promote participation in the census by our citizens and others. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it is important that everyone counts. It's about having fair representation for everybody in this country. It is the Constitution that we have this census. The data is confidential, and that's something we have to drive home. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. It's about redistricting. And there's $675 billion that's allocated based on census data. So what do we stand to lose if we're undercounted? In fiscal year 2016, Texas received $59.4 billion based on census data. That's $2,132 per every resident of Texas. In Mesquite, if we have a 1% undercount, that'll result in a loss of over $3 million in funding, federal funding per year. Just to kind of give you an example of where it goes if Texas doesn't get it, federal funds lost by Texas due to an undercount are redistributed to other states, obviously. For example, for each federal dollar that Texas gives up, California gets 13 cents. Other states get other fractions of that. This is a long list of programs, and it's a much, much longer list of programs that funding is based on census data. Things like community development block grants that we deal with here in the city every year and all the time. Medicare and Medicaid, all sorts of housing loans and grants, things like the school breakfast program, WIC, nutrition for infants and children, the summer food program, housing for elderly and persons with disabilities, veterans housing, workforce and innovation opportunity activities, highway safety, and special education grants. These are just some of the things I pulled out that are important and that are funded by the census count. I mentioned I'd get back to confidentiality. The law, I'm just going to read this because it's important. The law requires the Census Bureau to keep everyone's information confidential. By law, your responses cannot be used against you by any government agency or court in any way. The Census Bureau will not share an individual's responses with immigration enforcement agencies, law enforcement agencies, or allow that information to be used to determine eligibility for governmental benefits. Title 13 makes it very clear that the data collected can only be used for statistical purposes. It cannot be used for anything else, including law enforcement. It's very important. We have so many people that are afraid to fill out the census form for various reasons. We just need to drive home the importance of that confidentiality. Confidentiality matters so much to the census. We participate in the Land Use Census Address Program, or LUCA program, where we work with the Census Bureau to be sure they have every address in the city of Mesquite, every residential address. Every time they send me something, it's got all kinds of confidentiality on it. When we took the original data and worked with our GIS division on doing all that, we all had to sign confidentiality agreements Only people who did that could look at the data. It had to stay secure. And that's for addresses. You can go to DCAT or all kinds of other places and get addresses, but because it's addresses the census has, it is absolutely confidential. So that's how serious they are about it. So we're going to keep driving that home and make sure people know that they can feel safe responding to the census. So what we need to do, what the Complete Count Committee, Debbie's going to talk more about that, is focus on the hard to count populations. And I'm going to turn this over to Debbie Anderson and let her take it from here.
Welcome.
Thank you. As we all know, historically, certain populations are more likely to be missed in the census, and that's kind of what our group is trying to do, is trying to find ways to reach out to those groups. The groups that we're looking at targeting is children under age 5, people living in poverty or experiencing homelessness, people of color, immigrants, and people who move frequently or live in an apartment complex. We're trying to find ways to reach out to these groups to make sure that they get counted. Here, Jeff's done this map up. These are the 10 hardest to count tracts inside the crossing into the city of Mesquite. This is based on the last census. So as you can see, there's quite a few areas here that we really need to focus on. Due to current political climate, many immigrant communities are on high alert for government agencies, higher risk than ever. They tend to be hard to count under even the best of circumstances. Fearing for their safety and livelihoods in the United States, citizenship questions, rising fears of ICE detention and deportation practices. These are all very real fears, and we really have to get over those. Example, minority communities, African Americans have been historically undercounted for decades, in part due to the fact that more than 1 in 3 African Americans live in a hard-to-count census tract. And they're just hard to get to reach out to. Latinos have been historically undercounted for decades, in part due to the fact that roughly 1 in 3 Latinos live in also hard-to-count census tracts. And that's why we're really working on focusing on those areas. Our committee, I should say, has begun the outreach that we want to do. We're talking to Mesquite ISD and PTAs, ministerial alliances, Hispanic Forum, Eastfield College, nonprofits including Mesquite Social Services and Sharing Life, HOAs, crime watch groups, apartment associations, local clubs and civic organizations, and we're trying to make sure that we hit some community events such as Breakfast with the Bunny and Kidfish and the Rodeo Parade. We're hoping to have a float. Marketing and communications, City of Dallas has shared marketing resources, and with that we are creating Mesquite branded optics. Wayne's doing an excellent job with us on that. Census Bureau resources, participation with Dallas County, outreach. We plan on doing press releases. We'll have articles in the mainstream, council connections, social media, e-marquees, and of course KEOM. Census Day is April 1st. So various events are going to be at several locations. We're hoping to set up at schools, apartment complexes, the mall, and the library. And we're hoping to have kiosks available for those that don't have computers, that they can come out and have assistance to get those online done. This is your Complete Count Committee. We have myself as chair, Yolanda Wilson as vice chair, Amanda Langford from Mesquite Social Services is on there, Kathleen Bowling from Mesquite ISD, Teresa Jackson with Sharing Life, Fernanda Rojas with LULAC, Debbie Screws with Townie Small, and Michael Noble with Eastfield College. Great group of minds. We all have some connection with the community, and it's going very well. And that concludes mine, unless you have some questions.
Tremendous information. I think most of us don't think all throughout the years, every 10 years, about all these important issues that you guys have brought up. So thank you very much, and thank you for willing to serve. Council, any comments or questions?
Don't forget to do your census.
Don't forget to do your census.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Armstrong.
Mayor, just another moment. I just wanted to let you know, in addition to that PowerPoint, we did put the initial plan in front of you that the group the committee has put together. It's just a few pages there of how they plan to move forward with marketing, communications, and then just activities and so forth. And I think Ms. Anderson did emphasize the point of it is electronic this year, and so we need to make sure that those who may not have access to those electronics have access to the census.
Thank you so much.